Great way to start off the video, start off the live. Not sponsored, but Monster, if you want to, please do. Thrilling watching this makes, I'm well aware. But I need my Monster to keep me going in my drink and roll glass that I got from Comic-Con. Just gonna wait until a few people join and then we're gonna go. Oh, background music playing once again. We need to have atmosphere. There we go. Making sure I'm properly prepped. I've got my notes. PHP open beside me. And we're ready to go. Another Friday, another live. Oh, getting some notifications. Hair in my face as well. Don't mind me. That's fine. Just checking my settings. Just gonna wait for a couple people to join. And then we will continue. Again, this music is by the Fichte brothers. So this is not my music, but I love it to pieces. I always play it in the background. I hope everyone is bringing their notebooks and snacks ready for the lesson. Me in on my awkward potato teacher mode. Just gonna wait another couple minutes. Sound like a bit of a broken record, but there we go. Just vibing with the music for now. Okay. Oh, I don't want that one. There we go. Okie doke. I think I'm going to get started. So again, this is another session going through the 2014 Player's Handbook, and last week we covered dwarf, elf and halfling races, and this week we are covering human, dragonborn and the gnome races. And I think we're just going to dive right into it. So starting off with humans. Humans are one of the younger races to appear, basically, and they are one of the shortest lived as well. So dwarves can live up to 350 years old, elves can live up to 750 years old, halflings can live up to 250 years old, but humans rarely see a century, so they are one of the shorter lived races, but they don't let that stop them. They are more than capable of building kingdoms and empires, civilizations that will outlast them, in terms of they can, like I said, build empires that will last generations. They are innovators. They're highly skilled, highly able to achieve things. Humans are also highly adaptable, and you can find humans in desert countries, in the Arctic tundra, in highly arid places, highly humid places, as Doctor Who said, you know, humans get everywhere, basically. And there is a very, very broad spectrum of humans where dwarves, there's not much, dwarves, elves and halflings, there's not a very wide range of them, but humans, like I said, you will find them in the hottest arid deserts, you'll find them in the coldest Arctic tundras. There's a very, very broad spectrum of humans. In terms of motivations for adventuring, they tend to live in the moment. They might have that Bilbo, I'm going on an adventure moment and just head out into the wide world. But also they do like to plan for the future. So in terms of how lucrative it is, sorry, my screen's just still not used to lives. Like I said before, me and all my awkward potato glory. Anyway, where was I? Yes, so they like to, whereas they do live in the moment, they also like to plan for the future. So adventuring is very lucrative. They could go on a couple of missions and get a couple of sacks of gold and gems and decide that, you know, this is it. This will set my my family up for a few generations. They also like to be remembered. Like I said before, they will build empires and kingdoms, they'll create governments, they'll create libraries, they'll study magic, they'll study engineering, they'll study all sorts of things to fill those libraries. They will create codes of conduct, they will create laws, and they will abide by those laws and codes of conduct for generations and generations and generations to come. Names for humans, there's a lot of variety. I'm not going to go through all of them here. There are 9, I think. There's 9 ethnic groups for humans within the Forgotten Realms. I'm not going to go through all of them here. I think going through the names and the differences in those ethnic groups for the humans, it would take me the entire life. I'm not going to do that. But like I said, like the different ethnic groups, they all have differences in skin colour, hair colour, eye colour, and differences in names as well. Although some humans may pick dwarven or elven names to give to their children, but they do tend to stick with their own, you know, names from their heritage, from their ancestry and things like that. As for traits, the ability score for humans, you will gain a +1 for each of them. So that's a +1 to your strength, constitution, dexterity, wisdom, intelligence, and charisma. And I've always thought about this. Like I said before, humans are very adaptable, they're very hardy, and they're able to overcome a lot of things in terms of where they live and how they live. Age-wise, they mature in the late teens and they typically live less than 100 years, so roughly around about 80 years. The alignment, unlike the dwarves and the elves, there's no like strict alignment that humans tend to like move towards. It's a very, very wide range. While humans have the best of the best, they also tend to have the worst of the worst. Obviously, they can range from lawful good to chaotic evil. Size-wise, they range from just over 5 feet to over 6 feet tall. They range from 125 pounds to 250 pounds, and their size is medium. Their speed is 30 foot, and languages, humans would know Common and another language of their choice. So, for example, you know, you could flavour that in your character's backstory as your family has traded with orcs for generations, so they will know Orcish, or they've traded with dwarves for generations, so they will know Dwarvish. Then there's also the variant human don't want to rip my page. There's the variant human traits. Put my teeth back in. If the dungeon master uses this in their campaign, rather than an increased ability score for +1 for each of them, they would have 2 different ability scores increased by 1. You would gain a proficiency in 1 skill of your choice, and you would gain a feat of your choice as well. So feats we'll cover in more detail later on. That's in chapter 6 of the Player's Handbook. But basically, when you level up, when you get to certain levels, you get the choice to pick to increase 1 ability score by 2, or 2 ability scores by 1, or foregoing that, you can choose to pick a feat instead. And that's kind of like expertise. It's something that you've done, you've trained, you've experienced something, and you have now been given, you've gained this talent to do something. Like I said, I'll go more into feats, more into details later on. That is it for humans. Yes, that is it for humans. So Dragonborn, they are a little different. I'm just going to show you what the Dragonborns look like in the Player's Handbook. So obviously they're quite dragony. They're born from dragons, but they have the, appearance of dragons, but they move like humanoids. So they will walk on 2 feet upright rather than on all 4s like a dragon, and they don't have wings and they don't have tails, although they are hatched from eggs rather than born like, a human would be. Some Dragonborn serve true dragons, others are soldiers in wars and things like that. Appearance-wise, the one in the Player's Handbook, I think this is a red Dragonborn, but most of them, lore-wise within the Player's Handbook, through generations and generations, the colour has kind of faded, so it is now, more often than not, like a tarnished bronze or a tarnished brass. But if a certain dragon's blood is very prevalent and strong in a certain line of Dragonborn, they would still have those vibrant colours. So you could have blue, red, green, or you could have white, black, and you could even get like really, really shiny metallic dragons such as gold, silver, or like copper or brass. As a race, they tend to be very self-sufficient. They are a very hard-working in terms of they push themselves. They want to excel. They want to exceed. They push themselves until they can't go anymore. They don't like to fail. And as stubborn as that might make them, they understand the importance of asking for help as well. Something that I feel like I should do more often. But yeah, so they know, like I said, they push themselves. They don't like to fail, but when they do need to ask for help, family is everything to a Dragonborn. So they would ask family for help before they ask friends, before they even ask help from the gods. So even if they were, say, a cleric or a paladin, they would ask family help from their family first. Clan comes first. Family is everything to a Dragonborn. Now, like I said in a couple of sessions before, Dragonborn is one of the uncommon races. There's a list here. So the uncommon races are Dragonborn, Gnomes, Tiefling, and half-elves and half-orcs. So again, if you did want to play a Dragonborn, I would double-check with your Dungeon Master beforehand to see if it's a viable option for the campaign that they're running. I've completely forgotten where I'm up to. There we go, names. So, like I said, family is everything to Dragonborn, so the clan name would come first as a mark of respect. Then they would have their given name, and then they would also have a nickname which would be used like throughout their childhood, which would come from either some kind of event or like a habit that they had as a child. An example I've played only briefly, I've only been able to play it briefly, a paladin, Dragonborn paladin, and her nickname, because she was born into a big family, they were all clerics and paladins, I had it written into her backstory that holy symbol that was around her mother's neck. She would kind of chew on the chain, and her siblings, her hatchmates, would have called her Chain. So her name is Kara, but her hatchmates and siblings and close friends growing up would have called her Chain instead. That was her nickname. So a couple of examples for names for Dragonborn's male names. You've got Barash, you've got Nadar, you have Rogar, you've got Torin. Female names, Akara. I quite like that one, so I took that one for my character. You have Carver, you have Tharva, you have Pera. Childhood nicknames, there's Climber, Leaper, Shieldbiter. I think I got the inspiration for Chain from Shieldbiter. And clan names, these are immensely difficult to pronounce. I'm going to choose the easiest ones. Then we've got Mayastan, we have Narixus, we've got Yajerit. Do feel free to look these up for yourself, because I would just butcher the rest of them. Like I said for the other ones in last session, if you don't like these, you can always just make up one yourself, or there's a ton of like name generators on the internet, so that's always a viable option for you. So trait-wise for Dragonborns, your ability scores, you get a +2 to strength and a +1 to charisma. Age-wise, they mature physically a lot quicker than the other races. In terms of longevity, they are similar to humans. They reach round about 80 years old, but they can walk hours after hatching, and at 3 years old they're about as developed as a 10-year-old child, and at 15 they are classed as adults. So they grow and they mature at a much faster rate than other races. Alignment wise, they tend to be in the extremes. They tend to be like very lawful good, or like just very chaotic evil, in terms of like, they most would either worship Bahamut or worship Tiamat. So they would have the extremes. Like, unlike with the humans where there is a complete and total range, Dragonborns tend to go to either extreme. Size-wise, they tend to be well over 6 foot tall and very heavily built with it, being 250 to 300 plus pounds. Their size is medium, and also I think, not entirely sure if you saw it on the picture, but they would have 3 fingers and a thumb rather than the standard 4, ending in talons. Languages, they would know Common and Draconic, and Draconic is thought to be the oldest, or one of the oldest languages in in the realms, and it's used a lot in the study of magic. And like the Dwarvish, it can sound quite harsh to other races. Now, Dragonborns have Draconic ancestry, so that depends on the colour dragon that you want to choose, which then feeds into Draconic resistance, the ancestral resistance, and the breath weapon. So I have made some further notes. So breath weapon is, bear with me. So breath weapon, it takes an action to exhale, and you have a certain damage type and a certain damage range as well. And again, that damage is ancestry dependent. So for black and copper dragons, their damage type would be acid, but then you would be, as a black or a copper Dragonborn, you would be resistant to acid damage. Similar for blue and bronze Dragonborn, you would be, your damage type and resistance would be lightning. For brass, gold and red Dragonborns, it's fire, green is poison, and silver and white is cold. So that's the type of damage that they would give. They would be able to exhale as a breath weapon, but that's the type of damage that they would be resistant to as well. Now, the different types of attack would be, we have the black, blue, brass, bronze and copper they have a line. So on the combat, in combat grid, they would be 5 by 30, a 5 by 30 foot line, so that would be 6 squares. And the gold, green, red, silver and white, that would be a 15-foot cone. Now, one of my brothers has a really good disc, like a transparent like circular disc, and it's got different damage types and damage ranges. So once we get to combat in the player's handbook, I will see if I can borrow it and show you guys the differences. I'll see if I can borrow some of the tiles that we use for combat as well. That'll be a good visual to show you. And I think that's actually it for Dragonborn. With the breath weapon, you can use it only once per short or long rest. So once you've used it in combat, or you could use it out of combat. It's not just a combat feature, but you would have to do at least a short rest before using it again, which I think's a little bit rubbish, but I'm just that's just me. I guess if you could use it, once every 30 minutes, it might be a little bit overpowered, but anyway. So for our final race for today's session is the gnome, and they have a lot of energy and enthusiasm for just life itself. They love living life and living it to the fullest. They love inventing, they love exploring, they love creating, they love pulling pranks and tricks on people, although it does tend to be harmless rather than malicious. They're also very excitable, and even though they're another long-lived race, they still want to fit as much as they possibly can into their lives. They still, there's a lot to see and do in life. Can we do it all? And they tend to use their appearance as an extension of their personality. Like me, I'm wearing a Doctor Who and Beatles themed t-shirt. As for a gnome, they would, even though they potentially have only like earthy, brown, neutral colours, they would adorn their clothing with embroidery, or they'd stitch stones or gems to give it a little bit of flair, to show their personality through their clothes. Or some male gnomes might style their beards or their hairs in like points or forks or anything like that. As they live in hilly forest regions, and like the dwarves, they live underground, but unlike the dwarves, they do like to spend a lot of time up on the surface as well. So they like to be in the sunshine, they like the fresh air, and rather than burrowing deep into the hills, like dwarves live deep in the mountains, they have like warm, inviting, airy burrows. And when they build these, they will conceal them with either like the way that they're being constructed, or with illusion magic. So if you didn't know where they lived, you probably wouldn't find them unless you're very, very skilled in investigation, perception, that kind of thing. Those gnomes that live among humans, in human cities and human lands and things like that, they tend to take on jobs such as gem cutters or engineers, tinkerers, even tutors. Some humans will employ gnomes as tutors for their family, and they can, because like I said, they are one of the longer lived races, they can sometimes stay with that same family for generations and generations, teaching their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren. Name-wise for gnomes, they love names and tend to have 6, 7, maybe even 8 names that might have been passed down from generation to generation, but they tend to, when mixing with other races and introducing themselves to other races, they would probably only use 2 or 3. So they'd give their, they'd have their first name, their family name, and then probably a nickname. So examples of that would be some of the male names, like Alvin, Brock, Orin, Ren. Some of the female names, we have Danella, Ella, Larilla, Nissa. Family names could be something like Garrick or Timbers, Knackle. Nicknames, Badger, Cloak, Stumbleduck, which I quite like myself, Sparkle Gem, that's another one. And yeah, like I said, some of them will have, say, 6, 7, maybe eight names, but when interacting with other races, they'd probably tone it down a little bit. In terms of traits for gnomes, the ability score, you'd get a +2 to your intelligence. Age, gnomes will mature at a similar rate to humans and will be, by the time they get to 40, they will be expected to kind of settle down, make a home for themselves, start a family, that kind of thing. And they can live to be 350 to 500 years old, so they are one of the longer lived races, like I said before. Alignment wise, they're often good. If they are lawful, they tend to become sages or tutors, engineers, like I mentioned before. And if they tend toward chaos, they become like minstrels, tricksters, or even, like fanciful jewelers. Like I said before, they do like to adorn their clothes with precious stones and gems. Speed-wise, again, 25 foot. Size, they tend to be between 3 and 4 foot tall, 40 pounds, and like the halfling, they would be small in size. They have dark vision, which out of the 3 races that I've covered today, they're the only one that has dark vision. I do remember going through a dungeon whilst playing with Akara. She didn't have dark vision, and the other two characters did. It was hellish. It really, really was. As much as DMs everywhere kind of hate it when players go, "I have dark vision." Not having dark vision can really sometimes hinder you. It's not going to stop you, obviously, but it really was a hindrance. It was nightmarish, to say the least. Gnomes also have gnome cunning, so that's advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws against magic. So again, advantage is you roll your d20, roll it twice, and you will take the highest number. Language-wise, you will know Common, and Gnomish, however you want to pronounce it. And Gnomish actually uses Dwarven script. So I guess you could probably, when it came to, say, reading Dwarven script, gnomes might find that a little bit easier. Subrace-wise, gnomes, you could be a forest gnome. Ability with this, you would have a +1 to your dexterity, and you're able to use the minor illusion cantrip, as well as communicate simple ideas with small beasts and smaller. So small, tiny beasts, you'd be able to communicate simple ideas, examples such as squirrels, badgers, rabbits, that sort of thing. There's also the rock gnomes, and with a rock gnome you get a +1 to constitution. Artificer's Law, you would gain any intelligence history checks related to magic, alchemical, or technological devices. You add double your proficiency bonus to that, so you'd know more for that when you roll. Also, you get they get the Tinker feat, which means they're proficient with artisans' tools. So that means you can spend an hour and up to like 10 gold pieces worth of materials to create the following. So a clockwork toy of an animal, monster, or a person. It's just like a frog, a mouse, dragon, or a soldier. when placed on the ground, the toy moves 5 feet across the ground on each of your turns in a random direction, and it makes noises as appropriate to the creature it represents. So if it was like a little dragon, it might let out a tinny roar. If it was a mouse, it'll let out a squeak. It could also create a fire starter, which is basically like a little lighter. Produces a miniature flame which you can use to light a candle, torch, or campfire. Using the device requires your action, or you can create a music box. So when opened, this music box creates a single song, plays a single song at a moderate volume. The box stops playing when it reaches the song's end or when it's closed. So with this, there's a lot of scope for integrating that potentially within combat, during. Say you want to use something as a distraction, you could potentially use the music box for that, and things like that. Actually, reading through that gave me quite a few ideas for NPCs for next time I either, next time I DM, it could be like a little tinkerer gnome somewhere. It's given me quite a few ideas. With me. Also, there are deep gnomes as well. Third subrace of gnomes, the deep gnomes live in small communities scattered in the Underdark. Unlike the Duergar and the Drow, deep gnomes are as good as their surface cousins. However, their humour and enthusiasm are dampened by their oppressive environment, and their inventive expertise is directed mostly towards stonework. So, like with the Duergar, unlike the hill and mountain dwarves, and for the Drows, the dark elves, against the high and wood elves, they tend to be the evil counterparts, but deep gnomes aren't. They're just, like I said, oppressed by where they live because they live in the Underdark. But yeah, I think probably that, again, like with the Dragonborn, it'd be best to check with your dungeon master to see if that was a viable option to play before the campaign starts. And I think that's actually it for this week. That went a lot quicker than I thought it would, to be honest. I'm just going to leave a little bit of time in case anybody wants to ask some questions. Next week we are going to cover the half-elf, half-orc and tiefling races, and that's it for the 2014 Player's Handbook version. I know there are more playable races available, but those are the last 3 in the Player's Handbook. So yeah, that will be next Friday's live, 6th of September, 7 p.m. BST. We will be going through the half-elf, half-orc and tiefling races. And yeah, if no one has any questions, I'm going to end the live there. So yeah, next week, next Friday, hope to see you there. Ooh.